2 steps ahead. I am always 2 steps ahead.
I'm not sure how you go from a bowling ball to a bowling pin in such a short amount of time. So if you know anything about Nikocado Avocado, you're probably at least aware of his weight loss a few months back, which shocked the internet about as much as the GTA 6 trailer when it dropped. In fact, I remember when I first heard about the news, which made my jaw drop harder than the bomb on Hiroshima, which has become the modern equivalent of Darth Vader telling Luke he's his father. And now 4 or 5 months later, things are still seemingly improving for him, now that he's no longer built like an overgrown blobfish. And while you're at it, make sure to smash the like and subscribe button before I smash your mom. And join my Discord server while you're at it, where you can talk to fellow schizos, post unfunny memes, and even check out the Cheese channel. Why would you want to miss out? Anyway, Nikocado wasn't always as we know him today, as before he gained and lost his gravitational pull, he used to be a vegan mukbanger. Now I know I've already recapped this stuff in my last Nikocado video about his supposed weight loss before he actually lost his several layers of blubber, but I've decided to go ahead and quickly recap it again since it has been a little while, and definitely not to pad out the video length. But as you're probably aware, this phase of his life didn't last too long, since when he realized he would get more views by eating whole Waffle Houses worth of food and acting like a coked up chimpanzee on camera, things would get ugly pretty fast, and pretty much everyone and their grandma became aware of him and his constant meltdowns in the middle of his videos, like a Miami resident tweaking out on Flocka, whether that be him twerking on camera, bashing his car seat over seeing a lady feed cats, hitting the fence fold, or throwing around food more than a hyperactive toddler. And while people would continuously clown on him like an internet court jester, many people were pretty concerned about his health, as you could see his health actively deteriorate to the point of needing a mobility scooter and not even being able to control his own bowels, as he would actively shit himself on camera, have a brief meltdown, then continue like nothing happened. Though it's not like it takes some sort of health expert or doctor to understand that eating portions of food that could feed a whole medieval village for a month straight multiple times a day, and ingesting mostly just slop and fast food isn't very healthy. In fact, in this period of life, he probably had more red 40 in his bloodstream than red blood cells. And while he was making lots of money from this, he was actively destroying his own body, which people were very much aware of and would constantly tell him to change his life around before it's too late, which, as you can probably tell, was luckily what happened. But before then, it seemed pretty hopeless, as it looked like he was just ignoring all criticism and continuing to spiral, often just blaming people for his poor life decisions due to it making him money. And while we all know that he played a character in his videos, I still have a feeling that there was at least a hint of seriousness in what he was saying. But like I said in my last video, those choices were ultimately up to him. And with how successful his content was, he definitely had enough money to at least take care of himself better. It's not like he literally had no other choice, like he was living from paycheck to paycheck, risking complete homelessness and starvation if he stopped for even a day. And obviously if he lost weight, he would get a big chunk of viewers too. So not living a lifestyle that would probably kill you in your 40s definitely wasn't off the table. So it really came to greed more than anything. And while I know lots of people struggle with the numbers on YouTube, hell, they practically rub it in your face when your video doesn't get quadruple digit views, but this is a 30-year-old man that can afford a whole buffet multiple times a day worth of food, so he didn't really have much of an excuse. However, as we know now, he was actually secretly losing the weight for the past 2 years, and was occasionally uploading pre-recorded videos and keeping up the act, so we do know he was at least over-exaggerating how he felt about the viewers. And then when he uploaded his video 2 steps ahead, it shocked the whole world, with his extremely impressive feat of losing that much weight in only 2 years, which explains why he looked like a chemo patient in that video, and had leftover sagging skin like Mrs. Puff when she got deflated, or the baldness was some sort of deeper meaning that some random commentary YouTuber said, but honestly I don't remember and couldn't give a damn. And in his video he made some Shakespeare type speech about being 2 steps ahead and making fun of everyone who doubted him, and now that he was on a healthier path once again, we would see what he would do next. And now after all this time I've decided to look back on how he's doing. I know, it only took me like 4 fucking minutes. At least this isn't a pyro video, I guess. And thankfully he still seems to be doing well and hasn't slipped back into obesity. And while he is still doing mukbang content, as he said he still enjoyed doing them, instead of stuffing a whole truckload of food down his gullet, he's eating smaller portions of food. And in the video that I first saw when looking back on this, 3 steps ahead, he reveals that he got plastic surgery to get rid of that loose skin that was a side effect of losing 2/3 of his entire body mass, now looking completely unrecognizable from what he used to look like even before he transformed into a dwarf planet. And all of this is super impressive, and I'm sure inspirational to other people who are trying to lose weight. And again, while he was obviously putting on an act in his older videos, I'm sure that he did feel awful about himself during it. He even says it himself in his 2 Steps Ahead video, where he literally calls it a nightmare. And in his newer videos, he acts a lot differently and more happy, no longer acting up and having schizophrenic meltdowns with the camera, shitting himself and pretending to fight with his boyfriend. However, even in his response videos when he seemingly dropped the act, at least I'm pretty sure he has, it's pretty hard to tell when it comes to this guy. He still has the attitude of a theater kid and was still acting like it was just everyone hating him, literally comparing his detractors to ants. Now of course, like I said in my last video on him, of course there were people actually hating on him, and the people who are actually hateful towards him are a lot more like ants. And same for people who start or take part in blind hate mobs for no reason. But even that is an insult to the intelligence of an ant. But most people were just grossed or weirded out by the way he acted on camera, like how he ate like a wild animal tearing into a carcass, throwing around, squishing, and generally wasting food, and shamelessly showing himself defecate in his own pants, like a dementia-riddled old man who's pushing past his 90s and can't control his bowels anymore, which were all completely self-inflicted. So you can't be surprised when people are grossed out by you when you portray yourself as and act like a slob, while your shirtless body, built like Slimer from Ghostbusters, is covered head to toe in chip dust and cheese, while you gorge on a whole fucking cargo ship worth of Takis. But most of all, a majority of people are giving you actual advice, which was to not eat so much until your heart stops or your organs get crushed by your own fat, which was getting pretty close to happening until he finally decided that he actually did want to live past his mid-40s. Said incident I was talking about was when one of his ribs got injured, and he had a legitimate medical emergency, which he of course turned into a YouTube video, choosing money and rage bait over taking his own health seriously. And of course, even after that, he wouldn't stop delving into the deep pit of gluttony. And shit like this, including his health just deteriorating in general, made people legitimately concerned, certainly more concerned than he seemed to be, which is why I can't help but roll my eyes every time I see him and other people act like he secretly owned everyone. While yes, it was a massive shock to everyone when the video released and no one really expected him to actually go through with losing weight, especially not in secret. He didn't own jack shit, just doing the same stuff people have told him to do for years. And I don't really believe him when he says that this was secretly all planned the entire time. I'm sure he had it planned in the later years of this, but it's obvious it wasn't intentional at first, since he started doing it to himself once he realized that kind of content did well, only later realizing he should actually do something about it, which is something people were already aware of. If someone straps an active bomb vest to themselves and does something smart to get it off, they aren't some 500 IQ mastermind who pulled some sort of 4D chess move. They just did something extremely stupid and dangerous because they lacked foresight, but did something impressive to get themselves out of it. If he really was that smart, he would have either not let it get to that point or just straight up faked it, because at least then the whole social experiment controlled by a secret mastermind spin he tried to put on it would actually make sense. Now again, what he did was extremely impressive. I doubt most people could lose that much weight in only 2 years, and unless he was secretly pulling a liver king and being a steroid and Ozempic fiend, that kind of effort is genuinely commendable. And I do know that he tends to over-exaggerate and put on a persona in his videos, so I'm sure it's at the very least not entirely what he actually thinks, but I find it deeply ironic that he treats everyone like idiots while acting like he's some sort of genius, while he had just wasted some of the best years of his life and did who knows what irreversible damage to his body. Again, if it was just a cycle of addiction and the pressure to keep his channel alive, I wouldn't be nearly as harsh, but he tries to spin it as some sort of high IQ stunt, which even if it fully was, is still an extremely stupid thing to do. But another thing that gets me thinking is why his boyfriend was seemingly okay with all of this, as both he and Nikocado were actively fucking over their health for money. And since we know there are countless arguments and times when he talks about him ruining his life for part of the many acts on their videos, so it isn't just one person who is letting their life slip away, it was both of them enabling each other, or one of them pressuring the other into doing this kind of stuff, which just sounds straight up abusive. While you can excuse the stuff they are doing on video to each other as just an act and part of his quote-unquote social experiment, they both genuinely ruined their lives, and both the possibility of both of them wanting to do it, or one pressuring the other, is just extremely neglectful and irresponsible no matter how you put it. And honestly, the only social experiment he really did was showing how people will sacrifice themselves for greed. And when he uses the crutch as everything being a social experiment, it doesn't excuse all of the actually bad stuff he's done, like constantly clickbaiting his health and making making the people who are genuinely watching him worry about his health, and constantly using his medical issues, whether exaggerated or not, for clicks. That's just blatant greed. And when you constantly blur the line between fiction and reality, people are going to be genuinely concerned and confused by all of this, which is especially bad when you mix that in when you're talking about actually serious stuff. And you've got to keep in mind the context that he wasn't always doing that, as he used to be a genuine person that people actually looked up to before all of this happened, which he used for sympathy points until he moved on to more rage bait stuff, which simply can't be excused. And while I'm glad he's turned a new leaf and seemingly stopped with that kind of content, it still rubs me the wrong way that he hasn't really responded to all of this stuff over the years, and has seemingly just kind of swept it all under the rug. But until then, that's all I really have to say for now, so bye.